Hi, going to talk about ballasting this section of track today. And one of the first things that I did, of course, was to lay the track, and I lay mine with glue. It doesn't make any difference if I use glue or if I use spikes to hold this down. The problem is that it takes a while for me to lay an entire layout, and this room's fairly large. It's about 20 by 25. And in the process then, once I started until I finish, it may be a month, it may be several months before all the track goes down. And that gives a lot of heat and cold and expansion and contraction in the track a chance to work on my railroad. And you may notice on my railroad now that I do have a problem right in this section right in here. And the problem with that is that there is a bow right here. And I need to take care of that bow. So what I've done is I made some pieces that I call track straightening rods. They're simply splines that have been cut to 1/8 of an inch or about 5/16 thick. And then I took them up on the table saw and with a piece of track, and I made sure that they actually fit then into that track. And this one actually presses in. This is my short one. And I'm going to show you the long one in a second. Let's shove the car out of the way. We'll test on it in a minute. The one that I really like is this one. It's about 18 inches long. And that one, if I slip it in here, I'll go past the problem place here. I'm going to shove that in all the way down. You heard it snap. Then what I like to do is come and do this at least 4 times. So there's 2 and 3 and 4, and voila. I think you can see that I now have a straight piece of track. So now what I need to do is fix one other problem. You can see that I have a tie missing here. I'll show you there. Now you can see the insert piece here. It's missing a tie. It's a sleeper. In other words, it's just where the 2 pieces of flex track came together, and I was missing a tie. So we'll slip a tie in there. Now what I did to prepare that tie is I simply cut the spike heads off so it would slip under a little bit easier. But now I think you can see my spacing is much better. Go up there so you can take a better look at it. And you can see now that all my ties here have a pretty good spacing. So now I'll show you the other thing you should do first in testing. And that is run a car on it. And this car runs nice and smooth. My track is nice and straight. So I can go ahead and ballast in here. Now, I've used several different colors around here, but basically I'm using a sand as a base. And I want to be able to throw that sand down quickly. It's a lot of track to ballast, and I don't see any reason to do much more. So to give myself a little bit of a help, what I've done is to paint. I have a dark paint here where I'm going to put down all kinds of grass and that type of thing. But here, I'm using that natural sand, and I've thrown in some of them. I have a mixture of some blacks and some reds, some different colors of ballast that I mix in depending on whether I'm ballasting the yard or whether I'm ballasting around in some of the rural or the more urban areas. And that's what this is going to be, is an urban area. So one thing I don't like to do is cover a lot of ballast. Some people want them up all the way level with the track. I don't really do that. I try to just barely put a little bit of ballast in. So let's take a little closer look. And all I do is hold my sand up a little bit, or my applicator, and just let it drop. Now, it does bounce around a bit. And if that bothers you, I'll show you in a second what to do. Now, to me, that's plenty of ballast. I've got my ties in ballast. I've covered up my kind of yellowishy brown area, and that's looking pretty good. Let's take a look at it from up above, and you can see that it's fairly even and it's looking pretty good. I've covered, and my colorization has not changed that much. You can see where the sand is, but it's not too bad. So now, what do I do to get things a little bit neater? I'm going to put some scenery in over here. I don't like that. So the first thing I can do is I can brush or take my hand, either one, and kind of neaten this up. Now I try not to make it too neat. I want it a little bit like it's random out here. And then I'm going to throw some green grass and growies and stuff from Wood and Sinks or whoever in here to come up against the ballast. I like to ballast first. Some people like to do the scenery first and then do ballast. I think it looks a little neater this way. If I wanted to contain this now, I said I'd show you how. I want to take a card, and I'm going to hold the card here, and I'm going to come back now, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I don't know if you can see this or not, but I'm going to kind of drop some sand in here. And this time, the card will keep the sand from branching out. Now, it didn't do it on the other side, so I still have to correct it. But look at what happens. I have a perfectly straight line. And to me, that doesn't look as natural as what I did when I dropped it and then brushed it. So what I do then is I come along with the brush and I kind of make it a little bit uneven. If it's not enough, we can add some to it and just make it a little bit more uneven. To me, that looks a lot more natural than anything else I could do. If we take a look a little bit closer up, you can see that now my tie that was unevenly spaced, now everything looks good. My ballast is up. And to me, now, one thing I do is I take my fingers and I run it on top. Ballast doesn't really occur on the tops of ties. So we want to get rid of that as much as we can. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spray some water. And let's do a little dipsy doodle here. We're going to spray a little water onto that. And then I'll give you a close-up view of that, hopefully. There we go. You can see it from up above, and you can see the colorization changing as my water hits it. Now, I have two choices in what I'm going to do with this ballasted area. For one, I could take scenic cement straight from Woodland Scenics and add it right on top here. I could actually just spray it right on and it would be a good shape. This happens to be 50-50 Elmer's and water, and I put a little soap in it, and I just used it a couple of days ago, so it should be pretty well mixed. And what I do with that then is I take that and I put it in a little bowl. In this case, it's just a little breakfast plastic bowl. I bought a bunch of them at the dollar store. Always helpful to do things with a little less cost. And what I have then is I have a veterinary syringe. This is a pretty good size syringe, but I really like using it. And it does a super job for me. So I'm going to insert that. I've cut off the tip here a little bit to make it even larger. And what I can do then is just simply draw my 50-50 glue and water mixture up. Now, some people do this with a pipette. Some people do it other ways. I've got so much railroad to do here that I needed a little faster way to distribute it, so I do it with the syringe. And we'll show you that dropping on pretty close up. I just run a strip down the center. Sometimes I run two. Comes once down the ties and then once off to the side, once down the ties, and once off the side. And what I have then is coverage of that glue over the entire thing. Now, it will capillary out because of that soap overnight, and this will dry just hard as a brick. If you're a little nervous about it, spray a little more water on it, and when you come back, that will be absolutely hard, fixed down. You straightened it from the very beginning, so hopefully everything when it dries will be absolutely hard, perfect, and ready for you to go. What I want to do now is take a little break. I'm going to show you a section that has dried, and what do I do with the turnouts and with my tracks after it's dried, because it's going to be a little rough. This glue does skin over the top, and it's going to make the tracks a little rough. It's going to make the electrical contact not as good as what you'd like. As a matter of fact, you probably won't pick up anything at all. So show you how to clean the track and what to do at that point. Okay, so here I am on a section of the railroad that is ballasted, and the ballast has now dried, and now it's time to clean things. And you can see here, if you look a little bit at my track, that I do have a yellowy condition here on this rail. It has not been cleaned. So what am I going to do to clean it? Well, I like to use sandpaper or emery cloth. Now, there's a real controversy on this, on what you're supposed to do as far as the type of cleaning method that you're going to do. Some people say wet, they want to use a chemical, and some people want to use an abrasive like my sandpaper, or this thing is from Micromark, and I really love this. It's actually a Bright Boy, kind of a hard rubber with some abrasive in it. But I like this one in particular because not only does it come with a bunch of extension handles out here that I can reach into my tunnels or back into hard to reach places, it's dynamite for cleaning the rail up here because my hand is not down here. Well, I used to clean with a Bright Boy and I would constantly tear the ends of my fingers up. With this thing, I've got a handle and I don't have to do that. I can come in here on this track and push as hard as I want and clean that track. And I really like this, although I actually use it second. The first thing I use is the sandpaper. And what I'm going to do with it is simply to wipe it on the insides of the rail. Now, like I say, I worked for the railroad, and one thing we had to learn was the parts of the rail. And the places where the flange contacts the rail is actually on the insides of the balls of the rail. If the rail is slanted at 2.5 to make it center, then the insides of the rail are as important as the tops. Simply running a Bright Boy over the top across both of them doesn't really clean your rail for good operation. You want to get in here on the inside, and that's what I do with this guy is I come back and I slant it to the inside so that I get both of those. And I do this second because the Bright Boy tends to shine the rails. The sandpaper cleans it, the Bright Boy shines it, and I get a much smoother surface so I don't get arcing from my rails being grooved from the sandpaper. That's what everybody argues about on sandpaper or abrasives doing this. And that's why some people like to clean it with chemicals. I've never really found a chemical that can take the acrylic polymer of either Scenic Cement or Elmer's glue or any of the other glues off of the rail effectively. The best way is to use an abrasive. That glue skins over everything. You've got to take something pretty hard. I've even been known to take my X-Acto and scrape the top of the ties just so you won't get any grooving in it. But I really don't like to do that very much. It just wears out blades for nothing, and it's really not worth it to do it. Now, the next thing that I need to do is I need to come in here, and I'm going to have some ballast in this frog. So the first thing I've got to do is clean out that frog. And I want to clean out here in my flangeways any sand that's in there, especially again on the inside of this ball of the rail, so it's nice and clean where the flange is going to run. Here, I want to do that. Get that nice and cleaned out. Then I'm going to go over here to the points. And everything from where I pivot, which is back here, up, I need to get that really cleaned out. No sand in there at all. If it doesn't throw, I want to come in here and I want to start wedging this until it does. Now mine's pretty free. It just happened to hit one that's not frozen. But I want to clean that out. And I want to clean out anything then in here if I was having trouble. Any kind of rocks there that would interfere with the throw bar. That one's working pretty well. Now, I did not talk about it at the very beginning when I did the straight track that we were ballasting. But what I do is I try to come along here with my ballast along the very first of the track, and I will put my finger on here. See if I can get my cameras to switch. There we go. I want to pour that ballast kind of a crosswise pattern all the way up to my throw bar. I'm going to cover that throw bar with my finger. Then I'm going to go to the other side, bring my ballast up to here, and then I'm going to take my finger off and I'm going to ballast on one side and then ballast on the other side. And that gets me pretty good coverage all the way around, but it does not make for any ballast in that area where the throw bar actually exists. So when I come back in here to clean, you saw how easy a time I had of cleaning that out. That's what you want to do too, is stay away from this area between the two throw bar ties and the ends of the throw bar. Now let's go back and I'll give you another look at the close up here. You can see that it looks like it's all ballasted, even though it's not. And that's a good look as far as I'm concerned, because I've got a nice clean area here for this throw bar to throw in, and yet it still looks visually like I have a nicely ballasted area. Now, one thing, I always had a hero, have heroes anyway in the model railroading world, Wayne Wasowski, Gil Freytag. Gil Freytag's philosophy is get the trains running first, then ballast. And Gil ballasts in tunnels, he ballasts his staging tracks, he ballasts everything. Because his one philosophy was, once it's running right, ballast it, freeze it in the good running condition. And you'll be much happier with the end result. In the end, your tracks will run far, far better. And that's pretty much where I've got this track going. It's nice and smooth, it runs nicely. Get it right, ballast it, I think you'll be much happier. Until next time, happy model railroading.